My daughter threw a grand opening party for her new restaurant and invited 200 guests. Doctors, lawyers, real estate developers, half the business elite of Calgary. She forgot one person, me, her own father, the man who taught her how to hold a knife, how to season a cast iron pan, how to braise short ribs until they fell apart at the whisper of a fork. When I asked why, she said, "Dad, you run a food truck. These are serious people. You make us look small." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. On opening night, I walked through the front doors of her restaurant, climbed onto the small stage she'd built for speeches, and welcomed everyone to my building. The party ended before the first course was served. Before I continue, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling me what time it is where you are right now. The phone call came on a Thursday evening in late September. I was parked along the Bow River pathway, closing up my food truck for the night. The smell of smoked brisket still hung in the air, and the Calgary sunset was doing that thing it does in autumn, painting the Rocky Mountain foothills orange and gold, like the whole world was on fire. My hands were greasy. I almost didn't pick up. "Dad, oh my God, you're not going to believe this." My daughter Amber's voice hit that pitch she saved for moments she considered historic. She was 34, sharp as a butcher's knife, and had spent the last decade climbing through Calgary's restaurant scene like it owed her something. "Jared and I are opening our own restaurant. Like our own place. Downtown, Dad. On Stephen Avenue." I wiped my hands on my apron and leaned against the truck. My little girl, opening a restaurant. The words should have filled me with nothing but pride. But something in her voice felt rehearsed. Controlled. Like she'd practiced this call in the bathroom mirror. "That's incredible, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. I knew you'd be excited. Listen, we should celebrate. Can you come to dinner Saturday? There's a new place on 17th Ave, Ostra, 7 o'clock. Me and Jared. He's dying to talk to you about it." Jared Whitfield, my son-in-law. I'd known him for 3 years, watched him date my daughter for 2 of them, stood at their wedding 18 months ago in a rented suit that didn't quite fit. Jared came from money. Old Calgary oil money. His father had been a petroleum engineer. His mother sat on the board of the Glenbow Museum. Every time Jared looked at me, his eyes performed a calculation. The food truck with the hand-painted sign. The work boots with dried sauce on them. The calloused hands that smelled permanently of hickory smoke. He'd shake my hand for exactly 1 second, then find somewhere else to look. "I'll be there," I said. Saturday night, I pulled my 2011 Chevy Silverado into the parking lot behind Ostra and immediately spotted Jared's black Audi gleaming under the streetlights. New model. Still had the dealer plate frame. I parked 4 spots away, climbed out, caught my reflection in the window. Clean denim shirt, decent jeans, my good boots that I'd scrubbed for 20 minutes. Simple. Practical. Exactly who I'd chosen to be for the past 6 years. Through the restaurant window, I could see Amber sitting across from Jared at a corner table. She was laughing at something, touching his arm in that performative way people do when they want the room to notice them. My daughter had grown into a striking woman, 34 now, with her mother's dark auburn hair and my stubborn chin. She turned as I approached and I watched her expression flicker for just a moment before settling into a careful smile. "Dad, you made it." Her HUD was quick. Professional. The kind you give a colleague, not your father. "Malcolm, good to see you." Jared's handshake lasted exactly 1 second. His eyes did the scan. Collar of my shirt. Scratch on my watch. The permanent callus on my right thumb from years of gripping tongs over a smoker. The menu prices made me raise an eyebrow, not because I couldn't afford them, but because I knew Amber and Jared couldn't. Not on her sous chef salary and his mid-level marketing position at his father's firm. This dinner was a performance. "So tell me about the restaurant," I said. Jared launched into the pitch. Prime location on Stephen Avenue Walk, 1,200 square feet. Modern Canadian cuisine with Asian fusion influences. But I found myself watching Amber instead. The way she kept checking her phone. The way her attention drifted whenever Jared mentioned anything about our family's cooking traditions. The way she perked up only when discussing the investor meetings, the interior design, the VIP guest list for opening night. We're looking at a build-out cost of about $350,000, Jared said, his voice dropping into that particular register. Men use when discussing money they don't have. Amber's parents, sorry, her mom's side, are helping, and my dad's contributing, but we're still short. He paused. Amber studied her wine glass. Dad, if you could help at all, Amber said, even a little, for Mom's memory. You know she always dreamed of seeing me open my own place. She played the Ruth card. My wife. Gone 7 years now. Ovarian cancer took her at 56. Back when the world still made sense. Ruth had been the dreamer. She'd talked about our daughter running a real kitchen someday, building something lasting. She died believing Amber had inherited our passion for food, for feeding people, for the honest joy of a well-cooked meal. I pulled out my phone, opened the calculator, performed the pantomime of a struggling food truck operator doing painful math. I can put in 60,000, I said. It'll take most of what I've saved, but your mother would have wanted this for you. Amber's shoulders dropped with relief. Jared's jaw unclenched. Neither of them asked where a man who ran a food truck would get $60,000. They just took it, the way you accept something you believe you've always deserved. Thank you, Dad. You have no idea what this means. But I did know. I knew exactly what it meant. It meant they calculated my worth, found it barely sufficient, and moved on. The dinner ended with promises to coordinate, stay in touch, plan together. I walked back to my truck while they climbed into the Audi. Through the closed windows, I heard Amber's laughter. Something about at least that's handled. I sat in my Silverado for a long time, Ruth's old recipe notebook pressed against my chest. I'd kept it in the glove compartment since she passed. A private reminder of everything we'd built together. Everything they didn't know about. My daughter was embarrassed by me. The realization settled into my bones like a prairie winter. 6 days later, Amber and Jared appeared at my small bungalow in Inglewood, the one with the chain-link fence and the patchy front lawn. Jared sat in the car for a full minute before coming in, studying the exterior, the aluminum siding, the food truck parked in the narrow driveway, the hand-painted sign reading Malcolm's Smokehouse, visual confirmation of what he already believed. His father-in-law was barely getting by. They sat at my kitchen table. I poured coffee into mismatched mugs and waited. So the location is locked in, Jared said, swiping through photos on his phone. Stephen Avenue, right across from the Hyatt. 6-month build-out starting November. We've got a contractor, an interior designer, the whole package. Opening in May. Sounds like you've got it figured out. We're expecting about 200 guests for opening night. Jared's family has a lot of connections. Oil and gas executives, developers, lawyers, very influential people. I noticed he said Jared's family and their connections as if I existed in a different universe entirely. The thing is, Dad, Amber set down her mug. We need the money soon. The contractor wants a deposit, and Jared's parents won't finalize their share until ours is confirmed. Ours, as if she had contributed anything beyond expectations. I'll transfer it Monday, I said. Amber's relief was immediate. She came around the table, gave me a hug that lasted 2 seconds. Thanks, Dad. Really, this means everything. They left 15 minutes later. I watched Jared's Audi disappear around the corner, then walked to my basement. The room Amber had never seen. The room Ruth and I had built together 20 years ago, back when we started keeping secrets from the world. My computer hummed to life. The account Amber knew about showed $68,000. Modest savings for a working man. I scheduled the $60,000 transfer. Below that account, in tabs I never opened when anyone was around, other figures would have made my daughter choke on her latte. $19 million in investments. $11 million in commercial real estate. The quarterly statements from Dwyer Food Group, the company Ruth and I had founded 28 years ago, the company that owned 14 restaurant properties across Alberta and British Columbia, including the building at 224 Stephen Avenue Walk in downtown Calgary. The exact space my daughter had just leased for her new restaurant, without knowing her father was the landlord. Ruth and I started with a hot dog cart on the Calgary Stampede grounds in 1997. We had nothing. She worked the grill, I worked the customers. We saved every cent. Bought a small diner in Kensington, turned it around. Bought another. By the time Amber was 12, we owned 4 properties. By the time she finished culinary school at SAIT, we owned 9. Ruth insisted we live simply, teach Amber values, keep her grounded. After Ruth died, I made a decision. Step back from public life. Stop attending industry events. Let the management company handle operations. Live as the food truck guy, the widower smoking brisket by the Bow River, and see who valued me for myself. 6 years of playing the humble pitmaster. 6 years of watching relationships show their true colors. Amber had passed every test until now. That evening I sat on my back deck despite the October chill, holding a photograph of Ruth and me at the Stephen Avenue building purchase. 15 years ago, we stood outside 224, keys in hand, the Rockies visible at the end of the street, our dream taking shape. Amber had chosen my building for her restaurant, without knowing. Ruth would have laughed, then cried, then asked me what I planned to do about it. I heard Amber's voice drifting through the open kitchen window. She was on my front porch, phone to her ear. She thought I was in the basement. "The money's coming Monday, Dad. All 60,000. Her voice carried a tone I'd never heard before. Dismissive. Almost amused. Jared's voice was tinny through the speaker, but I caught every word. That's probably his entire life savings. "The guy lives off a food truck, babe." Amber laughed, sharp and unkind. "I know. Look, it's fine. He won't be at the opening anyway." Can you imagine? My dad in his smoky flannel shirt telling stories about brisket rubbed to your father's business partners. We'd be done before we started, so he's definitely not on the guest list. God, no. I'll tell him the venue has a capacity limit or something. He'll understand. He always does. She ended the call. Her footsteps faded toward the Audi. The engine started. She drove away. I stood in the darkness of my kitchen, the photograph still in my hand, my daughter's laughter ringing in my skull. He won't be at the opening. Can you imagine? The hurt was sharp and genuine, deep as anything I'd felt since losing Ruth, but underneath it, something harder began to take shape, something that felt like clarity. 5 weeks passed. The money transferred. Thanksgiving came and went with a brief, distracted phone call from Amber. She was busy with the build-out. November brought early snow and silence. I checked my email constantly, watching for updates about the restaurant. My inbox stayed empty. My phone stayed quiet. Then, on a cold morning in December, I ran into Gil Whitfield at the co-op on Crowchild Trail. Jared's uncle. We'd met years ago at a Calgary Chamber of Commerce gala, back when I still attended those events as Malcolm Dwyer, founder of Dwyer Food Group. He didn't know about my current circumstances, still thought of me as the restaurant property developer. "Malcolm, great to see you." Gil's handshake was warm. "How's business? Hey, did you get the invitation? My nephew Jared and his wife are opening a restaurant on Stephen Avenue in May. Big grand opening party. 200 guests. Should be impressive." My stomach dropped. "Must have gotten lost in the mail," I said. "You know how it goes." After Gil left, I sat in my truck for 20 minutes. 200 guests. Gil Whitfield received an invitation. I did not. I drove home. Searched my email for anything from Amber or Jared. Nothing. No invitation. No mention. No inclusion in any planning. That evening I called Amber. Kept my voice casual. "Hey, sweetheart. Just checking in about the opening. I haven't heard any details yet. When should I mark my calendar?" A pause. Too long. I heard Jared's voice in the background, sharp and questioning. "Oh, Dad. Yeah, we're still finalizing the guest list. It's complicated with the venue capacity. I'll let you know soon." The lie was smooth, practiced. I recognized it now. The same rehearsed brightness from that first phone call. Sounds good. Looking forward to it. I waited a week. Nothing came. On the 8th day, I called again. "Amber, I need a straight answer. Am I invited to your restaurant opening?" The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. I heard her breathing, heard the calculation happening in real time. Dad, look. This is complicated. Her voice changed, dropped the performance, settled into something colder. Jared's family has certain expectations. His father's partners, developers, oil executives, people who talk about portfolios and vacation properties in Scottsdale. You run a food truck, Dad. You smell like wood smoke. You wear flannel shirts. What would you even say to those people? I see. It's not personal. You'd be uncomfortable. We're actually doing you a favor. The words hit like a blade drawn slowly across skin, each one precise and devastating. So I'm not welcome at my own daughter's restaurant because I'm a food truck cook. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Dad, please. This restaurant is our future. Jared's career. My reputation. We need to present a certain image. Having you there in your work clothes telling stories about smoking meat on the Stampede grounds, it would undermine everything we're building. I thought of Ruth, the woman who married me when I had nothing but a hot dog cart and a dream, who believed in me when I couldn't afford a proper ring, who spent 22 years building an empire beside me, always insisting we stay humble, stay grounded, stay real. She would have been shattered to hear our daughter say these words. I understand perfectly, I said quietly. Thank you for your honesty, Amber. Dad, don't be like that. We'll have you over after the opening. Show you photos. It'll be great. Goodbye, Amber. I hung up before she could respond. Stood in my kitchen feeling something shift deep in my chest. The hurt remained. But underneath it, that harder thing crystallized into certainty. 6 years since Ruth's death. 6 years of living small to see who valued me. Mission accomplished. I'd heard my daughter's truth in her own words. Now she would hear mine. The next morning I drove downtown and took the elevator to the 22nd floor of Bankers Hall. Constance Park's law office occupied a corner suite overlooking the Bow River. She'd been my attorney for 20 years, structured every deal Dwyer Food Group had ever made, knew every detail of my hidden wealth. She was the only person who knew about my decision to live modestly after Ruth died. Her assistant showed me in. Constance looked up from her desk, and her expression shifted when she saw my face. Malcolm. What happened? I told her everything. Amber's rejection. The explanation that I was too embarrassing, too poor, too smoky. The building being my property. 224 Stephen Avenue. Constance set down her coffee. Hard. She said, what? That you'd embarrass her? At your building? She sat back, processing. Malcolm, this goes beyond disrespectful. What do you want to do? I spread documents across her conference table. Ownership papers, financial statements, the lease agreement Amber and Jared had signed through the property management company without ever seeing my name. I want to attend my daughter's grand opening. I'll arrive at 7 o'clock on May 9th. Walk through the front doors, take my place among the guests. I won't cause a scene. I'll simply be present. The truth will do the rest. Constance studied me, then nodded. Attorney mode engaged. It's your building. They lease the space, but you own the property. Legally, you have every right to be there. More than that, you have authority over every aspect of that building's operations. She made calls. The building manager, the security company, the property management firm, informing them confidentially that the owner would be attending the event at 224 Stephen Avenue and should be given unrestricted access. You'll need a witness, Constance said, someone who can verify everything. I'm clearing my May 9th. We spent 2 hours planning, timing, positioning, legal boundaries, what I could say, what I should avoid. Constance took careful notes, building a framework that would protect me from any claim of disruption. After leaving her office, I drove to Stephen Avenue, parked across the street from 224 and sat watching the construction crew through the windows. My building. Ruth and I had bought it 15 years ago, renovated the ground floor specifically for restaurant use because Ruth believed Stephen Avenue deserved better dining options. I could see the new kitchen taking shape through the glass. Commercial-grade equipment, Marble countertops, the kind of build-out that cost real money. Money partly funded by my $60,000. Given freely, received without gratitude. That evening, back in Inglewood, my phone buzzed. A text from Amber. Dad, I know you might want to come see the restaurant during construction, but please don't. It would just make things awkward with the contractors. We'll give you a private tour after opening week. Promise. Love you. She thought I might press my face against the window of my own building like a stray dog, hoping for scraps. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my closet and pulled out the garment bag I hadn't touched in 6 years. Inside hung my Canali suit, navy blue, impeccably tailored. Italian leather shoes, the silver cufflinks Ruth had given me for our 20th anniversary, engraved with our initials. I'd worn this suit to investor dinners, property acquisitions, the Calgary Chamber of Commerce gala where the mayor had called me one of the city's most important entrepreneurs. I tried it on, stood before my bedroom mirror. The man looking back wasn't the food truck operator in a flannel shirt and ball cap. This was the businessman who'd built an empire. The husband who'd stood beside Ruth at every milestone. The father who deserved better than what he'd received. I hung the suit on my closet door where I could see it every morning. 7 months until May 9th. I could wait. Winter crawled through Calgary the way it always does. -30 in January, Chinook winds in February bringing false spring. Then more cold. I kept running my food truck on the milder days, smoking brisket and pulled pork for the lunchtime crowd along the river pathway. Regulars who knew me only as Malcolm, the friendly pitmaster with the good coleslaw. Nobody suspected. Amber called occasionally. Always brief. Always with that rehearsed brightness. She never mentioned the guest list, never asked if I had plans for May, never acknowledged that she'd excluded her father from the biggest night of her career. On May 8th, I drove downtown and met Constance at her office. We reviewed every detail. She handed me a folder containing the building's ownership documents, tax records, and a printout of the Forbes profile from 4 years ago. Malcolm Dwyer, the quiet empire behind Alberta's restaurant renaissance. Ready? She asked. I've been ready for 6 years. May 9th came clear and warm, the kind of late spring evening Calgary earns after surviving winter. Mountains sharp against a blue sky, the city humming with energy. At 6:30, I put on my Canali suit, checked my cufflinks, adjusted my tie. The man in the mirror bore no resemblance to the man my daughter was ashamed of. Constance picked me up at 7. We drove downtown in her Mercedes. Stephen Avenue was busy with the dinner crowd, and I could see the glow from 224 half a block away. The new sign read Whitfield and Ash in elegant copper lettering. No mention of Dwyer anywhere. My daughter had taken her husband's name for the business. The sidewalk out front was crowded. Valets parking luxury vehicles. Women in cocktail dresses. Men in tailored suits. The particular confidence of people who'd never missed a meal they couldn't afford. I stepped out of the Mercedes and walked toward the entrance. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the crowd inside. 200 people holding champagne flutes, admiring the decor, the open kitchen, the art on the walls. I recognized faces. Oil executives, real estate developers, city councilors, Jared's father holding court near the bar, with the ease of a man who owned every room he entered. And there was Amber, radiant in a black dress, moving through the crowd with professional grace, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, playing the role of successful restaurateur. My daughter, in my building. I paused at the door. The hostess looked at me, then at her guest list. Good evening, sir. Your name? Malcolm Dwyer. She scanned the list, scanned again. I watched the confusion cross her face. I'm sorry, sir, I don't see. That's because I wasn't invited. I smiled gently, but I own the building. You can check with property management if you'd like. She blinked, reached for her phone. Before she could dial, the building manager appeared from the back hallway. He'd been expecting me. Mr. Dwyer, welcome. Everything is prepared as requested. I walked through the front doors. Constance followed 2 steps behind. Every click of my Italian shoes on the hardwood floors Ruth and I had chosen 15 years ago felt like punctuation. The crowd parted slightly as I moved through the room. A few people glanced my way, registered the suit, the bearing, the quiet authority, and looked twice. I saw Gil Whitfield near the bar. His eyes widened. He started to raise his hand in greeting, then stopped, processing. I made my way toward the small stage near the kitchen, the one Amber had built for the evening speeches. Jared was already up there, champagne glass in hand, tapping the microphone. "Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Whitfield and Ash. Amber and I are so grateful to have you all here tonight to celebrate this dream with us." The crowd applauded. Jared smiled broadly, gestured at the gleaming space. "I want to thank my incredible family for making this possible. My parents, my Uncle Gil, everyone who believed in our vision. And I have to say, this location on Stephen Avenue is absolutely perfect. Whoever owns this building has incredible taste." A few polite laughs. I stepped forward. That would be me. My voice carried clearly through the room. 200 heads turned. Jared's champagne glass froze at his lips. The microphone caught my words and amplified them off the exposed brick walls. I walked toward the stage, suit impeccable, shoes clicking on the hardwood. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone near the bar whispered, "Is that Malcolm Dwyer?" Amber's face drained of color. She grabbed Jared's arm, confusion and alarm fighting for control of her expression. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I stepped onto the stage, turned to face the crowd. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Malcolm Dwyer. 28 years ago, my wife Ruth and I started Dwyer Food Group with a hot dog cart at the Calgary Stampede. Today, we own 14 restaurant properties across Alberta and British Columbia." I paused, letting the words settle into the silence. "Including this one. I bought this building 15 years ago. My wife and I designed this ground floor space specifically for a restaurant because she believes Stephen Avenue deserves something special." I looked at Amber. I'm also Amber's father, the food truck cook, who was too embarrassing to invite to his own daughter's grand opening. The silence was total. 200 people stared at me, then at Amber, then at Jared, then back at me. I could almost hear the calculations happening behind 200 pairs of eyes. "Dad!" Amber's voice cracked. "What are you? How did I get in? I own the building, sweetheart. Your mother and I poured our hearts into this property. We used to talk about you cooking here someday. She died believing you'd grow up to value the things that actually matter." Jared's father stood up from his bar stool. His face had gone from relaxed to rigid. "What exactly is going on here?" "No drama, Mr. Whitfield, just truth." I pulled out my phone, opened the archived article. Malcolm Dwyer, Calgary's hidden restaurateur. Net worth estimated at $42 million. I handed the phone to Amber. Her hands were trembling. "Your mother and I built this from nothing. A Stampede hot dog cart and a shared dream. We lived modestly because she believed in teaching you values. After she died, I kept living simply to see who'd value me for myself." I looked at Jared, at his parents, at the 200 guests bearing witness. "You failed that test, Amber. You took $60,000 you believed was my entire life savings and then excluded me because having a father who runs a food truck would embarrass you in front of important people." Someone near the back was already on their phone. I heard the soft tapping of search queries, the loading of results, the sharp intakes of breath as photographs appeared on screens. Malcolm Dwyer shaking hands with the premier. Malcolm Dwyer accepting the Alberta Business Award. Malcolm Dwyer and Ruth at the Calgary Chamber of Commerce, flanked by the same executives now standing in my building. Jared's father crossed the room in 4 strides. His face had cycled through shock, calculation, and arrived at fury. "Jared," his voice was ice. "You told us her father was a struggling food truck operator. You said he couldn't even afford a proper suit." "I didn't know." Jared's composure shattered. "He lives in this tiny house. He drives a beat-up truck. He smells like barbecue smoke." "That was a choice," I said. "A test. And you both showed me exactly who you are." Jared's mother stood up from her table, something dangerous in her expression. "You're telling me we spent 8 months planning this opening. Invited every contact we have, and the person who owns this building, who is wealthier than half the people in this room, is your father-in-law, and you didn't invite him? The social math was devastating. In the Whitfield world, connections were currency, and they had just publicly rejected the richest man in the room. I addressed the crowd one final time. The restaurant is ready, the food is prepared. I won't disrupt my daughter's evening any further. I looked at Amber, saw the tears starting to fall. But I wanted everyone here to know what happened. Who decided a father wasn't worthy of his daughter's biggest night because he drove a pickup truck and sold brisket from a food cart. I turned to walk away. Dad, wait. Amber's voice broke completely. Please. I didn't mean I was trying to. You were trying to hide me, sweetheart, because you were ashamed. I walked off the stage, through the dining room, past the kitchen my daughter had designed without ever knowing whose building she was in. Constance fell into step beside me. Behind us, the murmur grew into open chaos. Jared's father confronting Jared. Amber crying. Guests clustering. Phones out. The story spreading beyond these walls with every text message and social media post. We drove away in Constance's Mercedes, past the valets, past the luxury vehicles lining Stephen Avenue. By morning, every restaurant owner, developer, and oil executive in Calgary would know what happened at Whitfield and Ash. The week that followed was brutal for Amber and Jared. I didn't witness it directly, but Constance had contacts everywhere. Jared's father spent the Sunday after the opening doing damage control. His business partners had questions, uncomfortable questions about his son-in-law's judgment, about the Whitfield family's due diligence, about whether people who couldn't even identify their own father-in-law's net worth could be trusted with investment decisions. Monday morning, 2 of the restaurant's angel investors withdrew their funding. The build-out loan suddenly looked precarious without the backing. Jared's position at his father's firm shifted from visible to invisible overnight. No more client meetings. No more networking lunches. Amber's sous chef friends, the ones who'd been eager to work at the hot new spot on Stephen Avenue, started making excuses. The phone stopped ringing. The reservation system, which had been filling up for weeks, showed cancellations. By Thursday, Amber's name appeared on my phone. First time since the opening. I let it go to voicemail. Dad, please. Her message was raw. Broken. I need to talk to you. I was wrong. I was so wrong about everything. Please call me back. I listened to it 3 times, then deleted it. Friday brought another call. Saturday, 2 more. Sunday, a text message. Dad, I'm begging you. Please. Monday morning, 9 days after the opening, I finally answered. What do you want, Amber? Dad. Her voice cracked immediately. Can I come see you? Please. I need to apologize. Face to face. I need you to understand. Understand what? That you're sorry you got caught? That you wish I'd stayed hidden so your social climbing wouldn't be disrupted? Silence. Then, quietly, I deserve that. I deserve all of it. But please, Dad, give me one chance. I thought about Ruth, about what she would want, about whether there was anything left in my daughter worth saving. Fine, come over. But bring Jared. He was part of this too. They arrived at 2 o'clock. I watched from my window as they sat in the Audi for several minutes. The car that had seemed like such a statement 6 months ago now looked like a debt they couldn't service. They walked up my cracked driveway, past my food truck, to my front door. Their faces carried the specific exhaustion of people who'd spent 9 days drowning in consequences. I opened the door before they could knock. Come in. We sat in my living room, the same space Jared had silently judged 6 months earlier. The worn couch, the dated carpet, the photograph of Ruth on the mantel. They looked at everything differently now. Amber spoke first, her voice thick. Dad, I was a terrible daughter. I valued status and appearances more than my own family. I was ashamed of you, and that shame was about my own insecurity, not anything you ever did wrong. She stopped, wiped her eyes. Mom would be devastated. She raised me in this kitchen. She taught me to cook on that stove. She showed me that food was about love, not money, and I threw all of it away because I wanted to impress people who don't actually care about me. Jared spoke next, stiff, but genuine. Mr. Dwyer. Malcolm. I pushed Amber to exclude you. I convinced her that having a food truck father would damage our brand. I made her ashamed of her own family. I was wrong about everything that matters. I looked at them both, saw the genuine remorse, saw something that might, with patience, grow into real understanding. Your mother and I built everything we have from nothing, I said. She was a waitress at a Denny's when I met her. I was flipping burgers at a Stampede concession. We didn't come from money. We made it through work and sacrifice and believing in each other. I walked to the window, looked out at my modest yard, the food truck gleaming in the driveway. After she died, I wanted to see who would love me for myself. You both failed that test, spectacularly. But failing doesn't have to be final, not if you're willing to learn from it. I turned to face them. I'm willing to forgive you. But forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. Trust gets rebuilt through action, not words. Amber nodded, desperate hope crossing her face. Whatever it takes, Dad. I sat down. First, you're going to downsize. Sell the condo in East Village and move somewhere you can actually afford. Second, you're going to pay off your restaurant debt yourselves. No bailouts from Jared's family, no bailouts from me. Third, you're going to volunteer at the Ruth Dwyer Community Kitchen, the organization your mother started to feed families in the Northeast. 20 hours a month, both of you, for a full year. Jared opened his mouth. Amber's hand on his arm stopped him. And fourth, I said, you're going to learn what your mother and I actually built. Not the money, not the properties, the values. The understanding that a person's worth has absolutely nothing to do with what they drive or what they wear or how they smell after a day's work. I met Amber's eyes directly. I'm not going to rescue you financially. I'm not going to use my connections to save the restaurant. You're going to rebuild from where you are with what you have, just like your mother and I did 30 years ago. Yes, Amber said immediately. Whatever it takes. Jared hesitated, then nodded. Yes, we understand. Good. Come back Sunday. We'll cook dinner together. Real dinner. Right here in this kitchen. And we'll talk about your mother. About how we started. About what actually matters. They left an hour later, walking down my cracked driveway with something they hadn't brought with them. Purpose. I stood at my window watching them go. Ruth's photograph in my hands. I did what you would have wanted, I whispered. I didn't destroy her. I'm trying to save her. Whether it would work, only time would tell. But for the first time in months, I felt something other than hurt. 7 months later, Amber and Jared sold the East Village condo and moved to a basement suite in Bridgeland, 3 blocks from where Ruth and I had lived when we were starting out. Amber kept the restaurant open, barely, running a reduced menu with a skeleton crew. Jared found work at a small marketing firm. Entry-level, nothing like his previous title. They volunteered at the Ruth Dwyer Community Kitchen every Saturday, serving meals to families who are struggling the same way Ruth and I had once struggled. I saw Amber there some mornings, really talking with people, really listening. Becoming someone her mother would have recognized. Our Sunday dinners became ritual. Simple food cooked together in my small kitchen. Stories about Ruth. About the Stampede cart. About the early years when we counted pennies and dreamed in millions. Jared learned who his mother-in-law had actually been. Not just the name on a community kitchen, but a woman who had waitressed double shifts and dreamed of something more. On a gray October afternoon, almost exactly a year after that first dinner at Ostra, Amber called. Dad, can you come to the community kitchen? There's something I want you to see. I drove over, parked my truck in the lot, walked through the doors that bore Ruth's name. Amber waited in the main hall, surrounded by volunteers, Jared beside her. On the wall behind them hung a new display. Photographs of Ruth through the years. Waitress uniform at Denny's, standing in front of our first hot dog cart. sweating over a grill at the Stampede, signing the papers for our first property, cutting the ribbon at the community kitchen she'd founded. We put this together, Amber said, her voice thick, Jared and I, to show people who Mom really was, not the wealthy woman who funded this kitchen. The woman who understood hunger because she'd lived it. I stepped closer. Ruth at 22, hair tied back, Denny's apron stained with coffee. Ruth at 30, laughing in front of our cart while Amber, age 4, sat on the counter eating a hot dog. Ruth at 40, at 50, her smile never changing, and, at the end of the display, a photograph I'd never seen. Ruth holding newborn Amber in the hospital, both of them glowing. Ruth's handwriting on the back, visible through the glass. My little chef. Where did you find this? Mom's recipe notebooks, the ones you kept in the truck. There were photos tucked between the pages, dozens of them. Stories you never told me. I touched the glass over Ruth's face, felt tears I hadn't expected. She'd be proud of you, Amber, of who you're becoming. I'm trying, Dad. She put her arm around Jared. We both are. That evening, I sat on my back deck despite the cold. Ruth's old recipe notebook open on my lap. The first page, in her handwriting, Malcolm's brisket rub. Brown sugar, smoked paprika, garlic powder, black pepper. The simplest recipe. The one that started everything. My phone buzzed. A text from Amber. Thank you for not giving up on me, Dad. I know I didn't deserve another chance. I won't waste it. I texted back. Your mother would be proud. So am I. I set down the phone and looked west toward the mountains, the last light catching the snow on their peaks, the way it had the evening. Ruth and I sold our first 100 hot dogs and sat on the Stampede curb counting bills with shaking hands, believing that if we worked hard enough and loved each other enough, everything would be all right. Amber was learning that lesson now, and somewhere I hoped Ruth was watching, finally proud of the woman our daughter was becoming. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear another story, click the link on the left.